Are we set? Good afternoon. I'm Tim O'Connell, currently chair of the utility board. Uh, this is the regular meeting of the utility board after due and open notice. Who's going to take the roll? And it seems a little silly because we can all see who's here, but nonetheless, for the record, I suppose we should.
I am happy to take roll. Chair O'Connell.
I'm here.
Vice Chair Milton.
Mr. Milton is not here.
McCorney.
Present.
Board Member Majewski.
I'm here.
Board Member Marshall.
Present.
Laird.
Here.
Board Member Quantz.
All right, thank you very much. We have a quorum. I will go ahead and call us to order and move through the agenda. I hope everybody had a chance to review the agenda in the packet. First order of business, of course, is public appearances. I see no one else present. I assume staff has not heard of anyone requesting to make a public appearance in front of the board.
We have no one who has signed up for appearances this evening.
Very good, thank you. First item of business is special business, which is the annual election for the chair and vice chair. Oh, here we go. Will, let's make sure the minutes reflect that Member Quantz is here. Good to see you, Will.
Sorry about that. I was having some connection issues.
No problem. It's the curse of doing these things remotely. But we are glad you're here. So we definitely have a quorum. There were no public appearances, Will, so we're moving on to the first item of business on the agenda, which is special business, board elections, electing the chair and vice chair of the board. So with that, I will open it up for discussion as to if there's anyone who wants to, we typically do chair first and then vice chair. So if there's anyone who wants to throw their name into the hopper, now would be the time.
I'm rather hoping that you'll continue, Tim.
Thank you, Meredith. I would be happy to do it. The city did pay to send me to that extravagant parliamentary procedure training, and I suppose they should get their money's worth out of me. So I would be happy to do it again, but if anyone else wants to do it and take a turn, that's fine too. So just don't hesitate to speak up. Okay, I'm not hearing anybody. So having gone through the parliamentary procedure class, I know the drill. I took what Meredith said as a nomination, and I will accept the nomination. Is there anyone else who cares to be nominated to be chair? Are there any other nominations for chair? Last time, are there any other nominations for chair? So having called for nominations 3 times, I've heard only one nomination. That nominee has expressed his willingness to do so. Any discussion about voting for chair before we move to the vote? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Hey.
The vote was unanimous. I didn't vote for myself, but other than that, it was unanimous. So with that, thank you very much, members of the board. I appreciate your continued confidence. Sorry, I think we just had the, I'm here in my office today, and I think I just had the All-Star Game flyby just go right by. So excuse me that I was distracted for a moment. Okay, I will take nominations for vice chair. Who would like to serve in that capacity? Mr. Milton had served in that for, I think, a year or two, and has very strategically chosen not to be with us at this point in time.
Well, I was going to ask whether we could nominate him in absentia. Has anybody understood that he does not wish to continue to serve?
I haven't heard from Steve one way or the other on that issue. I mean, literally just not yes, not no. I just have no info.
I'd be willing to put my name in.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Again, I'm going to go through the things that Mr. Roberts says we have to do. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, that I've called for it 3 times. I've heard no other nominations. I will consider the nominations closed, and the nominee expressed his willingness to serve. Is there any further discussion about the nominations before we move to a vote? Hearing none, declare the nominations closed. Debate closed. All those in favor of the nomination, please say aye.
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 Again, unanimous. Congratulations, Will. I look forward to working with you. Okay, regular business. Approval of the minutes. They were included with the packet. I think the appropriate thing is to take motions one by one. There's only 2 months worth of minutes to catch up on. I will take a motion to approve the minutes of the April 11 meeting.
I'll move to approve the minutes of the April 11 meeting.
Thank you, Meredith. Is there a second?
I will second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Thank you. Next are the minutes for the meeting in June. Again, I'll take a motion to approve those minutes.
I will move.
Okay, second.
I'll
Second.
second.
Heard a couple of seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Again, motion passes unanimously. Next, we move to the utility and construction in progress report. This is obviously very important as it is one of the leading factors that will bring us to the rate discussion in a couple of months. So with that, I'll turn it over to staff. Patrick, are you leading the show on this? Or Clint?
I can get started on that.
Great. Or Alan, I assume you guys have talked amongst yourselves. Whoever wants to take the lead, go right ahead.
Yes. Good evening, members of the utility board. I'm Clint Morris, the Capital Division Manager. Alan is here with us, and Patrick is going to be running the slideshow for me. We wanted to revisit some capital projects. Patrick, can you go to the next slide? So we wanted to talk about 4 things tonight. I'm going to start off talking about multiple projects we have going on up at the water reservoir site. Then I'm going to hand it off to Alan. He's going to talk about our water and sewer SCADA upgrade projects. Then I'm going to talk about a few utility maps with you. And then the last thing we're going to do is let you guys ask questions of us. So with that, Patrick, can you go to the next one? So you've probably heard us talking about the water reservoir for a while. That's because there's a lot of work going on at the water reservoir. This is once in a generation, or for me, once in a career kind of projects. These are new projects coming online that are going to have 20 to 30 year lifespans. One of them is the booster chlorination system. There's also the standby generator replacement, north-south reservoir improvements, and pump replacements. And these 4 projects are kind of interrelated because some of them share similar locations. Some of them are on critical timelines that touch each other. And all 4 of these projects are taking longer than we expected. There's an awful lot of delays in getting the materials that we need. So let's move on to the booster chlorination. So this project stems from the boil water event that we had back in 2014, where it was discovered that we had low chlorine levels in parts of the water system. So one improvement that came out of that boil water event was the concept of a system at the reservoir site that the city could use to control the chlorine levels of the drinking water. So this booster chlorination system is going to give us the ability to increase the chlorine levels in the water that we get directly from Seattle Public Utilities. It gives us the ability to generate the chlorine that we need on site. And that's that picture in the upper left, those tanks that you see and all that conduit on the wall. That is the chlorine generating system that's going to make the chlorine that then can be injected into the water reservoirs and into the large water mains that are entering and leaving the pump station. We're also going to have the ability to circulate the water in the reservoir tanks, which we haven't been able to do before. And that's going to help mix the chlorine into those huge tanks to give us a more even chlorine level through the whole depth of the tank. And with the ability to increase the chlorine levels at the reservoir, that lets us maintain an appropriate level of chlorine throughout the system. The further that water goes from our reservoir site, the chlorine level slowly goes down. And another part of this project, I didn't have room for a bullet, but we're going to be able to monitor these chlorine levels as they enter and leave the water reservoir site, which we have not really been able to do very effectively before. This project also involved some significant underground piping changes to 16-inch, 24-inch, 30-inch water mains, both on the reservoir site and several blocks away from the site. That's those other two pictures that you're seeing there. Lots of large diameter pipes being exposed, valves installed, so that we can reroute how that water arrives at the reservoir and how it leaves the reservoir. This project started in 2022, and it's looking like we're finally going to get this online at the beginning of 24. This project has suffered from material delivery delays on some of this specialized equipment. It's just taken us a really long time to get it.
Clint, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Before you move on, just very specific. The underground piping work that you're doing, is that all within the fence there of the reservoir area?
Some of it, a lot of it has been, but we have done some pipe work on 89th Avenue that's east of the reservoir. And there were some connections made several blocks away to help with the flow as the water leaves the reservoir. We had a secondary supply main that came up from East Mercer Way, the so-called canyon line that you may have heard us talk about before. That is being reversed to, instead of bringing water to the reservoir, that's now taking water from the reservoir and sending it down to East Mercer to improve that the flow characteristics of the water network. That's what a couple of these connections have been for, is to allow us some better flexibility in how we can deliver water out to the network.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and Clint, I have a follow-on question. You talked about the chlorine in the reservoir. Is that our chlorine or is that SPU's? Do we inject before we fill the reservoir, or do we inject it as it goes out to the customer?
I believe we're going to have the ability to do both based on monitoring.
I can answer that.
Alan, you want to take that?
Yeah. So right now the chlorine levels that are in the reservoir are directly from SPU. Once this is online, we will have multiple areas to inject. We can inject at the inlet valves. We have 2 inlet valves that get water directly from SPU. We can inject there. The primary injection will be in the tanks themselves, so that we can get the 1.0 parts per million going out of the tanks in order to reach the parts of the distribution system. We also have a bypass where we can inject in that, as well as what Clint was talking about, the canyon line. We're going backwards down the canyon line. If we ever had to use the canyon line as an emergency to receive water going up to the reservoir, we can also inject into the canyon line as well to get water from there.
Thanks. What I'm hearing is you'll have a lot more fidelity.
Correct.
So I also have a question, and my quick question is, Clint mentioned briefly that the further away one is from the reservoir, the chlorine level tends to go down. Is that all within a band that's the accepted band, so that if you're at the very tail end of the south end of the island, your water is still within, I mean, it must still be within quality limits?
You want to take that one, Alan?
Yeah. So our minimum chlorine level for Mercer Island is a 0.6. The state's is a 0.2. Because of boil water event there, we were mandated by Department of Health to increase our chlorine levels. So that being said, and that's why too, this involved a lot of piping changes that needed to be involved in our distribution system in order for us to get that chlorine out to the parts of the island that need to be in order to meet that 0.6 residual.
So is it 0.6 at the recipients? Somebody at the very south end is getting 0.6, or it starts at 0.6 and or the amount it loses is so little it doesn't matter?
So it starts at 1.0 coming out of the tanks, and we have to be a minimum of a 0.6 at all parts of our distribution system.
Got it. Thank you.
So this new system will allow us to increase that level as it's leaving, so that we can be assured that it's still that minimum level out at the extremities of the water system network. Were there any other questions about the chlorine system? Okay. Another project that is just coming online here this summer is a new standby generator for the reservoir. The current generator in the lower left photo there, it's installed in the building. It dates from when the building was built. It's like a 1975 diesel generator. Alan has told us that parts are getting hard to come by, and therefore reliability of that is not as good as it was a couple decades ago. So what the plan is to install a new enclosed generator looking similar to the one in the lower right corner. It's going to be outside the building. It's going to occupy the space in the trees in that largest photo, which is just inside the entry gate at the reservoir. And that new outside generator is going to be more efficient. It's going to have reduced noise. Certainly, I've been in that building when that generator runs. It's unbearable to be in there. So to move that equipment outside is going to be a huge benefit. We're going to have more modernized switch gear with automatic startup. So the system will know when the power's off, it will start. In the event that this new outside generator has a problem, it's going to have electrical connections on it so that another emergency generator could be brought in and hooked to this one outside. And by moving this generator that's in the building out of the building, that opens up some space for installing some pumps that are needed for this pump replacement project. So we can't do the pump replacements until we get the generator moved outside. And unfortunately, The generator that is a long lead time item. Alan, do you remember when we get this generator? Is it the end of this year or is it early next year?
Yeah, the generator itself should be the end of this year. What the delay is going to be as far as supply is the switch gear. That's not expected till May of 2024.
So the contractor is he's going to do as much as he can. And then we're probably going to be waiting a while for equipment to arrive. Patrick, can you go to the next project?
Clint, it looks like Councilmember Jacobson has a question for you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Clint and team, I'm curious about what sort of earthquake protection we have for these generators, since they're a pretty critical part of this thing, if I'm reading your comments correctly. Are special foundations or shock absorbing kinds of things that keep the generators online or as immune as possible to earthquake damage?
That's a very good question. I don't think I have an answer for that, but I'm going to assume that that has been taken into account in the pad and in the mounting frame. It looks like in this picture that there is maybe some dampening system there in that mounting pad above the concrete. I can certainly ask our project manager on this, that specific question and get back to you.
Thank you.
Clint, a follow-up, sorry. The replacement generator is also diesel, I take it?
Correct.
And what's the tank that supports that? I mean, how many hours, days worth of operation do we keep for the generator?
Alan, do you have an estimate on how long you can run with that fuel tank?
Yeah, so it's a 1,000-gallon fuel tank. Plus the generator will have what's called a day tank, a belly tank in that as well. So we could probably run for about 3 days.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. This is a large expense on this project, over 7 million. This is recoating both reservoir tanks inside and outside. This same work was done in 2000, and it was estimated to be about a 25-year life back in 2000. So it's time to do that again. But this project also, in addition to recoating, it installs some safety improvements, including stairs instead of the ladder that you see in that lower right photo. There's going to be some stairs that run up the side of the tanks. There's going to be hand railings on those, railings around the top of the tanks. As you can see in that upper left photo, there's no railings around the top of the tank. And instead of really small access holes, they're going to install some more human-sized access hatches that makes it easier for workers to get into the tanks when they need to. So this project is going to take a lot of time, because to remove and recoat the inside of a reservoir, obviously it has to be empty. We can only empty one of those at a time because we need the other one to run on. And we can only empty that one during the low demand period, which is from November to April. So we need 2 winters to do the insides of the 2 tanks. Now, during the summer weather, the contractor will get working on the railings and stairwells and exterior stuff to the extent possible. But we're anticipating this is not finished until early 2025. Any questions on this one?
Yeah, I see a couple of questions. Council member, is that New question, or did you not lower your hand?
No, it's a new question.
Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, in the awful event that we have an earthquake that closes both the bridge, all of I-90 access, where would we get diesel fuel from? Existing service stations that carry it, if any?
I'm not sure, Alan, what is our contingency plan for fuel?
As far as, we really don't have, as far as getting anything from service stations, we probably see about getting it from the school district for fuel. We try to get we would have to try to get a tank or a fuel truck on the island. We can make use of the fuel from the reservoir generator fuel tank to fuel up the other facilities. But that, if I got a 3-day, I can only last 3 days on that. That's going to be depleted quickly.
Thank you.
Will.
Yeah, are there any risks around, are you coordinating with SPU around future work that SPU may doing that could result in the type of emergency we had a couple months ago? And could that ever happen at a time when the reservoirs are being emptied for this project?
That's a good question. We are going to be coordinating taking these reservoirs out of service with SPU so that we can avoid that error of them working on their system while we're working on ours.
Yeah, so just to jump in on that, any work that SPU does on the system that serves Mercer Island will be very well coordinated, right? Well timed. As sideways as things went this last time, we did coordinate that with them and with this project in mind very specifically. So knowing that there was going to be quite a long time that we had our tanks offline during that low season, right? So when we don't have those peak demands. And so that was one of the reasons why they wanted to do it in April before our demand started to go up. So it would be the same kind of thing. We would not want to approve any sort of shutdown or repair work on their lines unless, both of our tanks were online and we were in the low demand time of year. So we do coordinate with them very closely, especially now, but we did before. But yes, we continue to coordinate that kind of work with them and their future planning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Stephen, you're next.
Yeah, thanks. So the recent switchover kind of demonstrated how critical these reservoirs are. So how would you characterize the capacity of these? Are these enough to meet our growth and requirements into the near future, or would this be an opportunity to upsize them, or are they fine the size they are?
Patrick or Alan, do you guys want to take that question?
I think most of you know that the city of Mercer Island, just like any other city that provides water to their customers, has to have a water system plan that's required by the Department of Health. Part of that plan requires that the entity does an analysis of the capacity of their system to make sure that they can provide enough water, in this case, to all their customers today and into the future and accommodate fire flow. So as part of our updates to our water system plan, we always hire a consultant that does water system modeling to show whether or not we have enough capacity or not. Short answer is the 2 reservoir tanks that we have sufficiently provides the water that is necessary, including fire flow. If something changes where population is allowed to increase by, 10, 20, 30%, then we certainly would have to look at additional storage. But there's also kind of a balance, because the more storage we have, the more water we have sitting in these tanks, and we have to chlorinate and do more monitoring as well. So we don't want the water to be sitting around either. One of the other challenges is we can't just increase capacity by making these tanks taller without providing a lot of additional structural reinforcement. the walls of the tank were designed in terms of thickness to be the height that the tank is. And same with the foundation, I believe.
Good points. Thank you. Meredith.
Yeah, I guess a little surprised, and it may just be my ignorance, that it's going to take the whole season to do the interior of one tank. Can you talk a little bit about, I mean, I don't know how long it takes to empty the tank and what all is being done to the interior that it wouldn't be done within a month or two, and then the other one being done in a month or two?
Sure. I'm actually the project manager for this project, and this is sort of a twice in a career type of project. Back in 2000, I was the project manager then, and it was my first project as city engineer. In terms of generally the work on the inside of the tank, first the contractor has to cut out a big panel of the steel tank so they can access to get in and out. Then they need to remove all of the existing interior coating off of that steel tank. I believe they have to do a lot of sandblasting. I think the tank, is it about 30 feet tall, Alan? Give or take?
Yes, 30 feet.
By about 150 feet across. So it's a quite a large tank with a lot of coating that has to be removed. Once that coating's removed, they have to do a lot of prep work before they apply their primer coat, and then they apply, I think, 1 or 2 top coats. Before they do that, there's a little bit of welding reinforcement they have to do in part of the roof structural members. And so because of all of that work, it does take most of the season. I'm guessing, I think it's around 4 months.
Thank you.
Per tank.
And Patrick, once contractors inside the tank, is there structural work that needs to be done? I mean, any cracking with any of the walls or flooring of the tank?
There are a few structural members in the roof structure that I believe either needed to get rebolted or welded. But overall, it's in pretty good shape structurally.
Very good.
And then I'd also like to note that for contractors doing this coating on the inside, there is no reason for them to drag their feet. If they're spending more time than necessary, then they have to pay their workers for more time. So that it's more beneficial for them to get in there, do all their work, and then get out, and then move on to other aspects of the construction project.
I'm sorry, all these questions keep on popping in my head. I'm assuming that would qualify as enclosed space work. Are they? We're confident they've got all the appropriate OSHA, WSHA
Yes.
boxes checked in that regard.
Yes, there's a lot of ventilation going on.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, hearing none, let's keep going.
Okay, this is our 4th and final project up at the reservoir. This is a pump replacement project. So in the main pumping pit, as I call it, at the reservoir, there are 5 existing submersible pumps. And Alan, you got to correct me on the timing of this, but a couple of years ago, we discovered that they have seals that contain mercury.
Yes, when we were doing the VFD replacements, one of the pumps failed to fire. And when we pulled it, we found that the motor itself had mercury seals in them. And that's common with the Byron Jackson pumps.
So once we discovered that information, we moved to add this project to the capital plan to replace these pumps and get these mercury seals out of the system because of the public risk health, the risk to public health that those pose. So during the feasibility and design of this, coupled with the new flow characteristics of the water reservoir and pumping well here after the booster chlorination system is installed, the designers have told us that if we add 2 small pumps, that would better handle the low flows than using these really large pumps. So along with replacing these 5 pumps with the mercury seals, we're going to add 2 smaller pumps, and those are going to occupy the floor space where the current generator is. The pump station building is not huge, so space is a little limited. So once we get that generator out of the building, that creates a space for these smaller pumps and piping to be installed, which will better handle those low flows, the low demand flow coming out of the reservoir. Did you want to add anything to that, Alan? Did I butcher that project, or did I come pretty close?
No, I think you got it on the head there. Pretty much, when part of the study was not only to identify the issue with the pumps as far as the mercury seals, but also look at the flow as far as what we're doing as far as system demand. And what was found is these are all 100 horsepower motors, and they'll meet the max day demand of, I think our max day demand is like 2,300 GPMs. But during the winter months, our max day demand goes down to about 700 GPMs. So these things are working pretty hard during the winter months to keep that low flow, and they become very inefficient. So that's why the recommendations came to better provide for the low flows, is to have the jockey pumps in place during low demand.
Great. Will, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, you may have covered this. Are these pumps on VFDs, the new ones?
Yeah, the current pumps are on VFDs. In fact, the panel behind you in the picture there are the 5 VFDs for the pumps.
Okay.
The newer pumps will also be on VFDs.
Will be on VFDs. Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
and they're looking at most likely making those vertical turbine instead of submersible.
Got it. Okay.
So for the rest of you, VFDs are variable frequency drives. What it essentially does is it controls the speed or flow rate of the pumps. So you can adjust, at least within a certain band. Without the VFD function, they're just a constant speed, constant flow pump.
Great.
So to quickly summarize, we have multiple projects at the reservoir taking up multiple or the same real estate by multiple contractors. We've got several different staff members working on this. So there will be a lot of coordination between city staff and the city contractors. And these projects are going to take well into the end of 24, if not the beginning of 25, to all be finished and online. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Alan, and he's going to talk about the water and sewer SCADA systems.
Yeah. Thanks, Clint. So we have two SCADA system upgrades. We have the water system SCADA system upgrade and the sewer SCADA system upgrade. Originally, these were going to be one upgrade, but they were so massive as far as the complexity, we decided to make them into 2 separate projects. The first one's the water system and equipment upgrade. These things are meant to, the reason for these upgrades is they're meant for us to remotely monitor and control the station operations through the network. I don't know if you're all familiar with the acronym of SCADA. It's supervisory control and data acquisition. So it allows us to not only get information from the stations, but it also allows us to operate the station, turn pumps off, adjust well levels, and so forth like that. The upgrades for the controls, as far as upgrading the controls, the alarms, the communication equipment, will allow staff to operate the stations more efficiently, remotely, and also be able to diagnose problems more proactively. For instance, if we know that there's high amps happening on one of the motors, for example, that could be running harder than normal, we could diagnose that and see and turn that pump or motor off and go to another pump and motor so we don't put a strain on that. Next slide, Patrick. So this is a screenshot of the water SCADA system. The part of the top there in the top right, that is the overview of the 5 sites, including the head end or the public works site of where the water SCADA is located as far as at the facilities there. This next or this bottom slide here, that's actually a screenshot of the reservoir storage site. So as you can see in that site there, we have 2 inlets coming from SPU, reservoir inlet 1 and 2. We have the north and the south reservoir. And then it also shows us, there we go. It also shows us the outlets as far as what was going out of the reservoirs into the system and so forth there. So there's a lot of information there. And what's nice about this new SCADA system, it allows us to drill down and look at specific items within, for each unit as far as each component. Next slide, Patrick. So the water SCADA is nearly complete. We have completed as far as the installation and of the 5 sites. They are fully functional, they're running. We can control them from not only our head end at Public Works, we can also control them from remotely from our laptops. That involved pretty much, that is our SCADA panel there at the reservoir site, which involves a programming logic controller. That's pretty much the brains of the SCADA system there at the reservoir. One thing that we did add that was not part of the project is we have a chlorine analyzer at the head end. It's called a CL17 that we use to report to the Department of Health every month. So that's going to be added. We kind of added that to the project, but we're not running into the same issues as far as procuring parts. So we're looking at probably close to the end of this year to have that up and running. Looks like we have a question.
Yes, Alan, my question is, if I'm off, I'm off mute. Is somebody on watch or either physically in the, I guess the Public Works building or on computer 24 hours a day, so that if something has to be done, somebody can act on it?
No, we don't have staff. We have a staff member on call, but they're not on the SCADA system. Our SCADA system has a alert system or an on-call system that will call out to the on-call person, or will call out to the manager or myself. And that's why we also have access with remote laptops.
Yep.
So we don't have to go back into the site. We can actually access the SCADA system anywhere that we have, as long as we have internet connection and so forth. So yeah, it's not manned 24/7, but it does have a alarm system that will call out if needed.
And how many people are qualified to make those adjustments in the unfortunate case that they arise?
Okay, so right now it's still in the test phase. So it's just myself and the 2 foremen, water and sewer foremen. As we complete the final draft for the training, all of these operators for both water and sewer will have access as far as to be able to make changes, and those changes will be tracked. So we'll know what changes were made and who made the changes.
Who does the training of these people to make them qualified to make those calls?
There's a training manual that was put out by our consultant, Brown Caldwell, and reviewed by the city. And after we accepted the review of the training manual, we went ahead and we're going to schedule a training for that. So we had to approve the training manual. And so now that it's approved, we can go ahead and start the training process.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions on SCADA? No, let's keep going.
Okay. This next one here, so the next part of SCADA, we're almost done with water. We're just starting with the sewer SCADA. Sewer SCADA is a little bigger project because it has more stations. So this is a screenshot of the new SCADA for sewer. The upper right there is the overview of the sewer system as far as where the stations are. And the bottom shot there is actually a screenshot of our test site for pump station 16. This is what we're going to be running our initial test on to go through the whole process prior to deploying the other sites. Next slide. So with the sewer SCADA equipment, design is complete. Contractor's been selected. And so we are in the process now of reviewing the submittals and going through the process of as far as getting the stations, the parts ordered for these stations and procured before they can start putting them in and building them. The panels will be built off-site at another location, and then when the panels are completed, they'll be given to the contractor, and the contractor will install them. In the meantime, the city had to do a little bit of prepping prior to that, so we had to install antennas at the sites, as you can see on this picture here, in order to receive and send information from the station. Also, as part of this project, or actually as an addition to this project, we did a ventilation study or air study for each of the sites in order to see what was any dangers as far as explosive, materials or inside the explosive gases inside the stations. And so some of the stations required us to install stacks or ventilation airflow stacks in them to prevent that explosive part there. Much of the work, though, as far as what they're going to be doing in the station itself, it's going to be either underground in the station vault or at the generator site. Not all the generators for these stations are right next to the pump stations. Some of them are up on the Mercer Way. So there'll be 2 locations where they'll be doing the work on that. And that's it.
Okay, we're in the home stretch. I know that this has taken a while, but I'm going to wrap this up pretty quick. I wanted to.
It's important stuff. No, let's take what time it takes.
Okay, I wanted to touch on some questions we had last time we did a presentation about basin maps. I was throwing around the project name of Sewer Basin 40, and I apologize for not explaining to you where that was, but that's led us to diving into some maps here. So on the left is the stormwater basin map, and on the right is the sewer basin map. And I did these side by side to show you that they're similar. The island is made up of 50 some drainage basins and a similar number of sewer basins. And both the storm drainage system and the sewer system are relying on gravity to convey that water or sewage down to the lake. In the case of the storm system, that water discharges to the lake. In the case of the sanitary sewer, it discharges to the lake line sewer main, which then goes through a series of pump stations and ultimately sends that sewage to the east mainland there, and it goes down to Renton to a treatment plant. But again, these have some similarities in that the topography of the island is what the sewer system uses to deliver that sewage through a series of gravity pipes. Patrick, can you go to the next slide, please? This is a little bit of an enlargement. Some of the drainage basins are huge. For example, this pink one in the center is basin 10. That encompasses the town center area, which is a huge amount of parking lots, roads, roofs. That basin generates a huge amount of storm water. But then if you go over by the floating bridge in what we call East Seattle, there's multiple little drainage basins. If we go to the sewer map next, Patrick, you see some similarities there. we can have really large basins of sewer. We can have small ones. And I've highlighted basin 40 that we had talked about a couple meetings ago. This is one of our oldest sewer basins on the island. We are in the process of doing a over 10,000 linear feet of relining of these sewer mains to address infiltration and inflow. This basin starts clear up by Mary Waite Swimming Pool, goes all the way down Mercerwood Drive to the lake. These big black arrows are indicating the general flow of that basin towards its main discharge to the lake line. So again, you've got big sewer basins, you got small sewer basins. They all ultimately tie into that lake line ring of pump stations. And are we out of slides, I think? Oh, no, we have one more.
One more.
So summer celebration is coming up. And as part of that, the Public Works team has assembled a map to display to the public of projects that are happening in this biennium in 23 and 24. And Patrick, if you could jump to the next slide. We enlarged the island so that you can see the top half and bottom half. The water projects are in blue.
I'm sorry, I'm getting there.
So I want to draw your attention to the water project. There's a lot of water work happening on the north end of the island. You've got the water reservoir site. These circles are pressure reducing valve stations that are getting rebuilt. I believe one of them is the First Hill booster pump station. The blue lines are segments of water main that are getting replaced this year. So again, there's an awful lot of work happening on the water utility at the reservoir site, as well as the whole north half of the island. Did you have any questions about the maps or about anything else that we've presented here tonight? We're now in the question period.
Great. Clint, I'll go ahead because I don't see anyone. Oh, some others. Council member, I'll defer to you. You go ahead first, please. You're muted, Councilman.
My bad. For the sewer relining projects, are you using a cut and cover technique or pipe bursting kind of technology?
We are using a cured in place liner. They pull that collapsed fiberglass liner into a run of sewer line from manhole to manhole. They inflate that with compressed air and they cure it with ultraviolet light. It's a rather interesting process. It's not very invasive at all. Access is from the manholes. Once they do the main line, they come back and they do what they call a top hat, because that's what it looks like. That is for the side sewer laterals to repair that joint where the side sewer tees into the main line.
Thank you.
Meredith.
I just wanted to say thank you to Clint. I think I had been, maybe among others, raised some of those questions about the basin maps. And so I really appreciate the explanation today.
You are very welcome. I hope that cleared up some of the questions that you guys had.
Clint, I really appreciate your capital improvement projects map. I think that is just a great project, and I look forward to some of the other citizens being able to see that at summer celebration. A question for you about it. I take it that this only identifies projects being undertaken by the city, and doesn't include projects from the county or SPU?
That's correct. These are city projects. So what is absent on this map is the big metro sewer Anatai force main project.
You know, when we had SPU at the special meeting a month ago, they mentioned this is the phrase they use that has always stuck with me, the slow moving earthquake. Was that along 40th? Is that, are they going to be doing something with that sometime soon?
I don't know. I'm going to defer to the rest of the group here on what SPU might be thinking and doing.
You want that, Elaine?
Alan, why don't you take the first crack at it, and then I'll jump in.
So it was identified in that area that area is sliding, and so it's part of that piping, the 24-inch that goes up there. They have right now, they have monitors within the area, and they're keeping track of how much it is sliding, so forth. As far as I am understanding, I don't know if they have a schedule to replace that line or do any work on that. That's going to be a pretty big undertaking.
Yeah,
to do that.
That's what I was asking. Yeah. Okay. Great. Any other questions from any other members of the board? If not, I'll echo Meredith's comment. Council member.
Well, I'd like to thank you for a very, very thorough and detailed presentation. It's really great. One of my duties is then to tell the city council about what you discussed. You know, thanks for the homework assignment. I'm going to be talking to at least one of you guys about some training aids. And unfortunately, those of us who are liaisons to boards and commissions talk last, and our community doesn't really get, if they're still tuned into the program at the end of the meeting, if there is anybody, it's probably a lower number, and that's too bad. So I think it's highly commendatory that you're going to take something to summer celebration, and hopefully the city can publicize that, or we can let people know so they can go seek it out, get informed, because I don't think we can over-inform the public about what we're doing about our utility infrastructure. So, you know, it's a critically important thing in this sentence. Thank you.
Excellent comments, Councilmember. I echo them completely. That's one of the reasons I really commend this maps, putting it in a pictorial form for people to be able to see all the work that's going on. I think is really, really helpful. Any other comments, questions? Because if not, we'll move on to the next item with our appreciation for staff. This has been a very productive and useful discussion. And again, all of this kind of information helps inform the rate discussions, which we'll be getting to over the next couple of meetings.
Thank you all for your time tonight.
Thank you, Clint. Okay, if there's nothing else, other item of business, our next meeting is not until September. You were given the work plan. I thought I printed it out, but I didn't. I think in the September meeting we have, there we go. Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, no problem. So in September meeting, we have 2 items on the agenda: the King County solid waste rate amendment and potential bond issuance update, where we will have our finance director with us.
Marvelous. Those are both high priority, and the bond issuance is something we've been talking about for a number of years. So we'll look forward to that. Last item of business is field trip tour of various utility projects.
Yes.
Elaine, are you on point for that?
Yep, I will take that. So I sent out an email to the board, I believe it was several weeks ago, I think, just asking for interest in our utility site tours. We've done that. We typically do this once a year during the summer and kind of try and hit a suite of different utility projects across the island. I got responses from a few folks about it, some who were not able to make it during the proposed dates. I think I had thrown out there August 6th, 7th, and 8th as potential dates with tour opportunities in the morning and in the afternoon. It sounded like maybe a few folks that wasn't a week that worked well for them. And so I just wanted to gauge interest in potentially moving those site tours to one day the following week to see if there were maybe more people who could participate then, and just to generally gauge interest. We are going to try and do a different suite of projects than last year, so you can see some different things, although clearly we have a lot going on at the reservoir. There are always projects to look at there, but getting you maybe to a different pump station, a different stormwater site. So I think we have some good potential things up. So if I could get any feedback from the board on if, what dates work, if we should stick with that first week, or if you'd like to look at the second week. Councilmember Jacobson.
The second, I'd appreciate the second week, because the first week I'm going to be in Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands. It's a little hard to catch up with you guys, but don't let me get in the way of the board. They're the first order of business here, and I'm just
And Elaine, what was that second date?
Sorry, so the week after, it would be either the 15th, the 16th, or the 17th of August. So before, I think I had sent out, I apologize, it was the 8th, 9th, and 10th. That's what it was.
I'm gonna briefly go get my calendar.
Okay.
The advantage of doing this here in my office is I can look at mine with one click. The 16th or 17th are good here for me personally, but don't let me, be the driving force.
I'm interested in capturing as many folks as we can. So
Absolutely. Will?
Yeah, so the week that you proposed is not on the table for me. The all three of the dates, 15th, 16th, 17th, work well. And I appreciate this was really one of the highlights of my being on the board so far. This was amazing last year. I do appreciate the opportunity to see some different projects though, so I'm excited about that.
And I'm sorry, you said those do work well or do not?
Yes,
work
they
well?
do. 15th, 16th, 17th all work.
Great.
Very good.
Okay.
Sorry.
Very good.
They also all work well for me, and I would echo. It was terrific it was my introduction last year to the projects and seeing things. It taught me a lot. But the 16th, 17th, 18th is all good.
Sorry, 15th, 16th, and 17th, I think, are the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Yeah.
Make
All
sure
right.
The Tuesday is off the table for me, but the other two are good.
Okay. All right. Anyone else want to weigh in on availability?
It's harder for me to go away during the work week, but I would say 16th or 17th is my best option. So just keep that as an option.
Okay.
Yeah, this is George. I could do the 15th, but I cannot do the 16th or 17th.
It's always the way it is.
It is the way it is.
The
So
difficulty of scheduling something follows the power of the number of people involved. So,
So
who haven't been on, I'll just say one thing, and I intend this for Patrick and Clint and Alan to hear. One of the really exciting things about those tours is the opportunity to talk to some of the staff, and because you really get an appreciation for, how committed they are to this work. So it really is very worthwhile.
Agreed.
great. So it looks like most people are available the 16th and 17th. I think, Alan, I'm not sure, I know your crew is very much on the hook for being involved in these tours. If there's one of those days that works better for you.
Either day works. That's why I kind of offer those days as far as our availability. Either one of those works for us.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and put it on the calendar for the Wednesday, the 16th then. And I will send out more information to the entire board about particular times, where we're meeting up, all of that. And we hope we will see as many of you as possible. Great. Thank you so much.
Is the thought to do a morning and an afternoon tour again?
It is, yes. Yeah. And those usually, I think, have run typically about 3 hours long, those tours.
Right.
Between 2.5 and 3 hours long. Just getting around the island.
A 3-hour tour, so long as it doesn't involve a small boat, just sounds fine.
We're not putting anyone on the water, so.
All right, thank
Wonderful.
you. Very helpful and very useful stuff. There's no other business on the agenda unless anyone has anything that should come before the board for the good of the order. Hearing not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Approved. Everybody have a great rest of your summer. We will see you in September.
And
Thank
maybe
you.
August.
Yeah, thanks all. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.